Hello, viewers, and welcome to another episode of Reminiscences. Today, we are in the home of Dr. Adamu Muhammed Fika, who is a retired permanent secretary, having worked for many years in Maiduguri, in a northeastern state, as permanent secretary before he moved to the federal service, where he continued at a senior level, became permanent secretary in many ministries, or director general as it was sometimes called, and then later on became the clerk of the National Assembly when the transition to civil rules started to happen. After that stint, he ended up actually as the executive chairman of the National Assembly Service Commission. So he has seen various levels of service, both at the regional or state level to the federal level. So I'd like to welcome you to Reminiscences.
Thank you very much.
And to ask you to take us through your early years. I know you were born in Fika.
I was born in Fika.
And then you studied also there.
Yes.
Yes.
I was born in 1942 at Fika, in Fika local government of present-day Yobe State.
Right.
However, when I was born, we were still in Borno State, or Borno province, in fact, so to speak. And we were part of the northeastern states.
Right.
But I did my primary education at Fika from 1948 to 1952. Then I moved from there to Potiskum Senior Primary School from 1953 to 55. And thereafter, I was admitted to Barewa College.
How did that happen? Because Barewa then was the premier college in northern Nigeria. Was it a competitive process that took you there?
It was a very competitive process. And the interview, actually for the selection, were for Borno province, who were all in Maiduguri, where an expatriate education officer, senior education officer, interviewed us, and in the end, 5 of us were selected.
From Borno province?
From Borno province.
Will you remember some of the 5?
I can remember all of them.
Yes.
There was Ali Maraki, Ibrahim Alkali, myself, Alhaji Umar, and Mahmoud Ahmed, Ambassador Mahmoud Ahmed, who is still alive.
Yes.
Yeah. So 5 of us from Borno province.
So you went to Barewa,
yes,
which is of course far away from where you are. I mean, far away from Borno.
Yes.
This was in Zaria?
Zaria, yes.
Right. How was the experience? How are you traveling to go to Barewa in those days?
We traveled to Barewa most of the time by public transport, by lorry. And it's very adventurous, especially in the rainy season, when it took about 10 days.
10 days?
From Potiskum to reach Zaria. Because at that time, whenever it rains, the trunk road was closed for 24 hours. If you are not lucky, before 24 hours, another rain will fall.
Yes.
Then the road will again be closed for another 24 hours. So there is no specific time for arrival. So usually during the rainy season, it took a minimum of 10 days to reach Zaria.
So where were you sleeping all this time? You are young boys then,
yes,
going to school. So where will you be sleeping and eating during these long stops?
Well, the lorry will usually stop in our village, and we had our mats. You put it down under the car with your wooden box as your pillow. You sleep. Sometimes you sleep in the lorry itself when it is raining. But it was, for us young men, it was a real adventure. Those 5 years. because coming back home, we used to go by train, often from Zaria via Kafanchang to Jos, or from Zaria to Kano, and then complete the rest by road, which we really enjoyed it. And
How long would that take? Once the train service was available?
the train service from Zaria to Jos took overnight. We set off maybe around 5, 6 in the evening from Zaria. We arrived just around 5 a.m. The following morning, you know. And to Kano, it took some hours only. But we enjoyed it whichever way.
Yeah.
And
Barewa is a very elitist school.
yes,
I mean, is it a very sharp contrast from your life in Potoskum to being in Zaria and with this in this elitist school where all the young northern boys were put together?
yes, because we had then 6 houses at Barewa College, and we were all shared to the various houses. And there you meet your classmates for the first time, and those senior to a year or two for the first time. And we are shared into about 5 students per room. And that's how we normally go to classes, starting from 7, where there will be a parade. After that, you go to the classes until breakfast at 9 o'clock. Then thereafter you go back to school and continue schooling until about 1:30. Then you go to pray, the lunch, then afternoon rest, and then games in the evening.
Was the food good? Was
The food was excellent. Better than what we enjoyed in our respective homes, really.
Yes.
And it was 3 square meals every day. So it was a pleasure.
Yeah.
And a
After
privilege.
Barewa, you went to Kefi.
Yes.
Again, that's another long way from Borno.
Yeah.
How was the experience in Kefi? I think this was for higher school certificate.
For higher school certificate.
Right.
Yes. Because it was the policy of the northern government then to reshuffle students. Even though HSC started in Barewa before I finished Form 5. But the government decided I should go to Kefi to do my HSC. While some from Kefi or Ilorin, Sokoto, etc. will come to do their own at Barewa College. That is one way of expanding the experience of the younger elites as they grow up. And at Kefi, you also met a fresh set of people. There was an arts class where we were only 11, and then a science class, which was bigger. They were up to 20 plus. But we did 2 years. And then when we finished, we set for the final exams. Luckily, I passed all my papers with flying colors.
How come you went to Makerere University, Uganda, for your degree?
It was just, I should say, my luck. Because when I finished at Kefi, December 1962, I went straight to Kaduna, where Adamu Fika, later head of service and secretary of the Interim Common Services Agency, and also
your namesake also.
Yeah, my namesake.
A lot of people say Adamu Fika.
Yes.
He comes to mind.
So he gave me.
That time he was a PAMSEC or he was a senior civil servant by then?
He was the principal of the Federal Training Center, Kaduna.
Kaduna, okay.
So he gave me a job as an assistant instructor. It is from the Federal Training Center that I went for the interview of the Northern Nigeria Scholarship Board. So they offered me a scholarship to go to ABU, which had started 1 year earlier.
Yes.
I said no. I want to go to Ibadan, where I would study history as a single honors subject.
Mm.
At ABU, you have to study 2 subjects.
Right.
And I said that was not appealing to me.
Mm.
And the secretary said, the Northern Nigeria government will not give me a scholarship to Ibadan. And I said, I will not go to ABU either.
Mm.
So I went back to my teaching.
Why were you so determined to go to Ibadan? I
Because-
mean, this exchange between you and the scholarship secretary.
Yes, I wanted to be a teacher of history. And I thought any other subject would distract me from my area of interest.
Mm.
And the secretary was unyielding.
Mm.
So I went back to my teaching
Mm.
until about July 1963,
Mm.
when I think Alhaji Labo, then the secretary of the scholarship board, phoned the principal,
Mm.
Alhaji Adamu Fika,
Mm.
to say, why is there a troublesome younger brother? He said, he's here teaching.
Mm.
He said, okay. I think about 2 days ahead, he said the registrar of Makerere University was coming to interview students to go to Makerere to study on U.S. aid scholarship
Mm.
for teachers in Nigeria.
Mm.
So if he is interested, he should come.
Mm.
So on the day in question.
Mm.
So I took that opportunity and attended the interview,
Mm.
and 2 of us were selected
Mm.
from northern Nigeria
Mm.
to go to Makerere.
Mm.
Myself and one Shitu Alimi.
Shitu
Shitu Alimi
Alimi.
from Kebi, Kaba province.
Okay.
So we set up to Makerere.
Mm. So how was it? Here you were from Potoskum, northern Nigeria,
Yes.
finding yourself in Kampala.
Well, Kampala was
This is in the 1960s.
yes, but I was in fact the only Hausa speaking fellow in the whole of all the Nigerian students. There was another group before us
Yes.
who were 25, but I was the only Hausa speaking.
Mm.
The rest are either Igbo speaking or Yoruba speaking or other languages.
Mm.
But I was able to adjust properly because those senior to us,
Mm.
especially when those that were in the same hall,
Mm.
they took me as a younger brother,
Mm.
particularly one called Ukeje Eluagu,
Mm.
who is now about 92
Mm.
in age,
Mm.
and Ralph Eboje
Mm.
from Midwestern State.
Mm.
Those two just treated me like a younger brother.
Mm.
And so I quickly settled down,
Mm.
and I enjoyed my studies because
Mm.
after the first year where we studied 3 subjects,
Mm.
English, history, and geography,
Mm.
I then concentrated on history only, from the second year to the third.
Yeah.
And,
How is life in Uganda compared to Nigeria, where you came from at that time?
at that time,
Mm.
we were about the same level of development. And the good thing is they used shillings
Mm.
as their currency,
Mm.
while we used pounds. And when we received allowances, I think the Nigerians had the highest allowances of all students.
Mm.
So we found life was really very enjoyable,
Mm.
with all the scholarships paid,
Mm.
plus pocket money
Mm.
to go along with it.
Mm.
So we had no problem whatsoever until we finished and graduated after 3 years.
Did you travel? Did you mix with people in Uganda? Did you make friends?
I made friends. I traveled in Uganda, particularly to northern Uganda. I also traveled to Kenya,
Mm.
especially the country of the Luo,
Mm.
with some friends.
Mm.
So we really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And after graduating, when I was at Kericho, I visited Nairobi and other places several times.
So after graduating from Makerere University, you taught for a while in Kenya.
In Kenya, yes.
Yeah, why did you choose to do that?
I chose it because at the time I finished my examinations, and I could come to Nigeria was March 1966. And the coup had just happened about 2.5 months earlier.
January.
So there was, the papers and magazines were full of uncertainties and anxieties about Nigeria. So I felt it wouldn't probably be safe to return home. So instead, I opted for the job in Kenya, where I taught there for about 8 months. Before, in October, I came back to Nigeria to join the staff of Ahmad Bello University, but based in Abdullahi Bayero College, which was then in Kano, but a campus of Ahmad Bello University, Zaria. Yeah.
When you are moving from Uganda to Kenya to teach, did you have a family at that point?
No, I did not have a family.
You are still a young married person.
I was still a young married person. But 3 or 4 days before I left Uganda for Nigeria, I got married to a Ugandan who was then a student in the equivalence of Teachers College, Advanced Teachers College. She was still a student there. So I got married to her. So by the time I came to Nigeria, I was a married man.
You came back together?
No, I left her to finish her studies before she would join me.
Right.
Yes.
So like you said, you came to Bayero, affiliate of ABU then.
Yes.
And you were there for quite a while.
Yes.
Teaching before going abroad again.
Yes.
So was this a kind of another scholarship you got, or is on your own that you went to, I believe, the UK for further studies?
No, it was still another scholarship.
Yes.
Because when I started teaching in 1966,
right,
I registered for a master's degree. And now under the late Professor Abdullahi Smith, who was the head of the history department at Ahmad Bello University. There I did 2 years. And I had nothing to show for it towards achieving the master's degree.
Why? What do you mean? So you didn't make progress in those 2 years?
I was young. I did not make progress. We were young. We spent a lot of our time in other social activities rather than studies. Besides, my supervisor was in Zaria while I was in Kano.
Right.
So there was a problem. I just could not make much headway towards achieving a master's degree.
Right.
So I booked an appointment to see the registrar, the late Professor Ishaya Audu.
Was it the registrar or the vice chancellor?
The vice chancellor.
Right.
So luckily, he gave me an appointment. So I narrated to him my predicament, that before it is concluded that I am unproductive or I am not brilliant, I need his assistance to be able to pursue a postgraduate studies outside the country, if possible. The vice chancellor, to my surprise, said, well, if you can get a admission in any university in the UK or US, I will get you a scholarship to go and study. I said, okay. So I applied to so many universities. Many American universities and British universities gave me admission. And I chose to go to School of Oriental and African Studies,
University of London.
University of London. So I informed the VC. And I don't know, the man was a wonderful leader. He just made his telephone contract with some people. And apparently I got a Ford Foundation scholarship through the Institute of International Education in New York. So they gave me a scholarship, full scholarship. And I therefore just packed my things. By that time, my wife had arrived from Uganda about 2 or 3 months earlier. So we headed for London. Well, the scholarship was very generous. And also, They allowed me 3/4 of my salary monthly in Nigeria. So if I run short of cash in UK, I always went to the ABU London office and signed a check of, say, £100. Our pound and the UK pound was by the same at par. So it was.
So how was life in London for a young scholar at that time?
So it was very, very interesting and very time consuming because my main place of study was the Public Records Office because I was decided to study Kano history. And most of the references are in that place. And you have to be in the queue or in the line by 7 a.m. And because the seats available are only about 17 or so. So every morning you have to be racing to reach the gate of the Public Records Office in order to be able to be allowed to enter for study from, say, 8 o'clock until 5 p.m. every day. And I really enjoyed it because either bus or train, they kept time.
Yes.
And they were every 15 minutes. There would be a train or a bus arriving at a particular station. So,
how did you deal with the cold of UK?
well, I had to dress up, buy warm clothing. But in any case, then we were young people.
Yeah.
One really was able to tolerate a lot of the cold. Sometimes even in the summer, you would go out only in a shorts. But nowadays, even when I'm in a suit, I go to London, I feel cold. 24 hours, unless I put on the heater. But in those days when we were young, no, it was very, very pleasurable to be in London.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how long did it take you? Because you didn't finish your masters in Nigeria. Now you went, and it seems that you combined the masters and the PhD there.
Well, in fact, when I went to London in the first instance, I registered for an MPhil, Master of Philosophy in History.
Right.
But after 1 year, my supervisors decided that I was good, therefore I should skip the MPhil and go straight and do the PhD. That is how I came back to Nigeria after 1 year to do 1 year's field work, where I collected a lot of stories, a lot of information from both Kano, from Zaria, and from Kaduna archives, and as well as Arewa House. Then I went back to London after 1 year to now start writing my thesis on the history of Kano from 1882 to 1940. So I went to my supervisor, I reported I'm back. So how do I go on? He said, well, you are now the expert. So unless you write me your first chapter, there is nothing I can do for you. And I have never been coached or taught how to write. So I was stuck. I did 3, 4, 5 months. I could not produce the first chapter. I did not go to see my supervisor. He kept phoning me. In fact, I took up a job with a factory, making sweets. Until he finally caught up with me and begged me to come for God's sake. My study is waiting for me. I said, you said, so we sat for about 2-3 hours. Then he lectured me on how to go about it, opening paragraph, which could be the theme, and then we go on, etc. He just taught me shortly, in a very short time. He made me to have the courage to commence writing my thesis. So I started. And when I wrote my first chapter, I took it to him. He was very happy. Then he concentrated. He really improved it so much, to my amazement, that I was surprised at myself. And that, in fact, made it easy for me to continue writing one chapter after the other until about September 1972, when I finished
The PhD.
writing the PhD.
So I'm wondering, Abdullahi Smith was
Yes.
still then the head of the Department of History, because ABU is known for this ABU school, which is a radical school, as you know, more than me.
Yes.
With Bala Usman, Mahmoud Tukur, and many Sule Bello, who also studied Kano.
Most of them are my friends.
Yes. But you seem not to be in this radical kind of tradition of the ABU. You cut your own path.
I was radical, but a very subdued one. Because that is how I was even elected
Yes.
as a member of the ABU Senate,
Right.
representing the congregation. That
Right.
is the grassroots teachers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you are a subdued radical. You really didn't follow. You didn't quite flow along with Bala Usman.
I didn't
and
go
all
with the extremism of Bala Usman,
this.
but in my own way, in Kano, I was probably the foremost radical at that time, because the authorities said students are not allowed to go to the staff club. And me, being a rebel, I would always invite
Yeah.
students
Yeah.
to join me. I said, before God, we're all the same. So why should we say you shouldn't come?
Yes.
Why establish the staff club
Right.
if our students cannot be our guests? So that is how my rebellion went.
But it was not ideological. In terms of the ideology or the fashion of having Marxism and all those.
No, not Marxism. My own was for equality before God and man. That the students are not small boys. So why should we prevent them going wherever they want on the campus? You know?
Yeah.
So that was very, very fruitful. We made so many friends. We are still friends with some of them. And then eventually we had an acting head of department, a Sudanese, who I think after around 1974, when I've just come back 2 years or thereabouts, he issued a circular that Nigerian history will be studied as an optional for those doing history honors. He put it on the various boards. I went and tore it up and put it that, in my experience, you go to the US, UK, India, every country in the world, Australia, the subject, the history of that country is a compulsory subject for an honors degree in history. So that we will not allow a black Sudanese to come and impose, treat us as second class. We will not agree. Even in Sudan, I've been there. That their history is compulsory. So we quarreled with him. So he couldn't pull out my own circular because he was afraid of the reaction of Nigerians. So I went to Zaria now to see the Vice Chancellor to complain. The Vice Chancellor, who some years back was so friendly, Then when my sleep went back, he wrote back that I should write to him through my head of department. So I said, okay. I went back to Kano. What I did was promptly to write a letter of resignation. So I sent it. Make sure that it will expire in 6 months. Notice would expire in November 74. The VC went. I went to Maiduguri and had interviewed with the Civil Service Commission for a job. The chairman didn't want, one of the members who is from Borno didn't want me to move from ABU teaching to the public civil service of Borno. But the chairman was sympathetic, as well as the governor. And despite the visit by the Vice Chancellor, Professor Ishah Audu, the governor was still wanted me to come and work in his office.
So the Vice Chancellor tried to stop you from
stop me from
going to the civil service.
Because they have spent so much on me by way of scholarship. And I have come and taught for only 1.5 years or so.
So you didn't fulfill your own
I didn't really fulfill the minimum requirements. But that is how I left.
So you left the university rather abruptly. You were a lecturer one.
Lecturer
did you really intend to stay in the university and become a professor before that incident?
That was my intention.
Yes.
But I was put off when the Vice Chancellor told me to write to him through my head of department, with whom we were not even on talking terms.
Yes, who you are fighting, yeah.
So that made me really so upset that I decided that I better quit because it's not worth it.
Why didn't you think of going to another university? Because that could have been an option.
No,
with a degree from London, PhD, I assume any university would love to have you.
No, my ambition was to teach in ABU. So once that was frustrated, I said it's better for me to offer my services to my own people. That's all.
So ultimately you left the university, you went to the civil service in Borno.
Yes.
Which many people will say is a big change because the tradition of academia and the civil service are so different.
I know, they were very different. But I was welcomed, and my permanent secretary and other colleagues helped me to settle down because I was promptly given accommodation so my wife could join me in Maiduguri. I was given an office as principal assistant secretary in the political affairs department in the governor's office. So it was another exciting challenge.
Yes.
So I was very happy. That was in December 74.
Yeah. You went on to serve Borno state government as permanent secretary in virtually every ministry in the state.
Not every day, but so many of the key ministries, like trade and industry, works and housing, element and forest resources, agriculture, finance, and health. Besides having served when I became first permanent secretary in the governor's office, I was in charge of administration and political department, as well as permanent secretary, Minister of Home Affairs and Information.
Is there anything you did that you think is something that you recall much later as your own particular contribution in Borno?
Well, one of the most controversial, it was even appeared then in the New Nigerian as a sort of scandal, was that in 1980 as permanent secretary, Minister of Animal and Forest Resources. I went to Kenya.
Kenya?
Yes. to collect the wildlife that President Jomo Kenyatta donated or gave to the northeastern state when he visited Maiduguri in 1973.
So Jomo Kenyatta was in Maiduguri? Was
In Maiduguri, yes. And that was in 1980. Then I went there. I was taken as a guest of one of the elephant farms. In that farm, I had more than 5,000 elephants in his farm. So I spent about a month. And the animals are in the wild. They have to be caught and tamed before they will be sent. And when I came back to Nigeria, the news leaked that I'm going to East Africa, to Kenya, with 52 million.
Naira?
To buy animals. When the 52 million, the 52, it was 52,000 shillings only.
Okay.
Because
Kenya shillings?
Yes. So it was a very cheap thing.
Yes.
That's including the air freight from Nairobi to Maiduguri. And among the gift was also a giraffe. But the giraffe, even after training, cannot enter the plane. So by the time the rest of the animals came, we took them to the Caribbean Park, no problem, because they're being acclimatized not to run away from people. But the newspapers carried a sort of drawing showing that animals in the aircraft and the giraffe's neck pointing out. But we did not bring the giraffe.
Yes.
Only that what I did was to send one forest officer to the Zambeza forest, where I've seen giraffes already, that he should go and not come back to Maiduguri except he brings back a giraffe for the Caribbean Park. So he went and caught a giraffe and brought it to the park and let it free. And the giraffe is not used to other animals or people, so it kept running until it broke its neck. But before even I came to see or to welcome it, the thing had broken his neck and died. So that was another very interesting incident.
So after 10 years in Borno, you moved to the federal service.
Yes.
Was that an invitation for you to move there, or you tried yourself to move?
I was in fact forced to move to avoid being retired. Because by about 85, I was virtually the most senior of the PAMSECs after the Secretary of the Government. But following the Babangida coup,
84.
85.
Okay.
85.
Yes.
So Buhari was toppled. Babangida took over. That's 85. Right. And the governor, then General Abubakar Waziri, who was a classmate, a townsmate, and a friend, was retired. So the Secretary of the Government now felt that during General Waziri's time, I had usurped his powers, which is not true.
You were PAMSEC government house?
No, I was PAMSEC finance.
Finance.
So from finance, I was moved to establishments. After 3 months, there was another announcement, reshuffle of PAMSECs. My name did not appear. So I handed over establishments and waited for 10 days. There was no news. So I went to the Secretary of Government. I said, you have taken me away from the staffs and you have issued a circular, but I don't see my name. So he said, well, you see, they wanted to retire you, but there are too many people from Fika who are retired. So the new military governor, then Lieutenant Colonel Amin from Kazina, said we should send you to Biu as sole administrator of a local government. So that is what prompted me now to expedite action about transfer, because I said if Aminu were to be transferred, that Secretary of Government would probably recommend that I should be retired. And I was only in my 40s. So I think it worked.
So you applied to the federal service?
I applied to the federal service for transfer.
Yes.
And kept following it up through friends, etc. And it was okay. But before that happened, 9 months after I was in Biu, there was a circular. As a signal from the Maiduguri that whatever I was doing in Biu, I should leave it and come to Maiduguri. So I came to Maiduguri. The following day, I went to the Secretary of the Government. He said, I'm going on leave. And the military governor said you should come and act as Secretary of the Government. I said, okay, no problem. So we did have handed over on a Monday. So he went to start his leave. 3 days later, by Wednesday, by the time I came to work, because I was working on at the conference table rather than the table of the Secretary of the Government. I found my boss in his seat in the office.
He was back?
He's back. I said, what happened? He didn't tell me anything. He just sat there. So we spent 6 weeks. I was doing the work of Secretary of the Government at the conference table. My boss was sitting there every day. Until his leave was over, I handed over to him.
Maybe he was worried that you continue the job.
I think he's one of the Malams misled him that if he went away for the 6 weeks, I would have taken over the job.
Yeah.
So thereafter, then I went to say goodbye to the military governor. He said, I'm not going to be. I said, well, how? He said, well, I have enjoyed working with you as Secretary of the Government. Now if you go, so he made me PowerSec special duties. But whatever file goes to him from the Secretary of the Government, he will refer it back to me again. So when my transfer now came, the governor said he will not release me.
To go to Lagos?
To go to Lagos.
Yes.
Because if I go, with whom will he work? I said, sir, your job is temporary. If they take you away now, my boss will recommend that I should be retired. And I'm not yet even 50. So I begged him. I talked to all his friends all over the country before he finally agreed to let me proceed to Lagos, which then I did in November 1986.
How was working in Lagos for somebody from Borno? You are used to the environment of Borno. Suddenly, did you find it challenging working in Lagos?
It was challenging, but at least one was used to the routine. In any case, by that time, the same Alhaji Adamu Fika, my namesake, was the head of service. So I was in his office as his special assistant, pending my posting to a ministry. And eventually, in February the following year, that is, I think, 87, he posted me to Ministry of Works and Housing as Secretary for Administration and Finance. That's why I went first. And then I was enjoying my job there. By July, we have worked out, solved the backlog of promotions.
Did you enjoy it?
NEC,
yes.
Personally, I didn't enjoy it because I didn't like it from the bottom of my heart. But Professor Awa, to my surprise, he just had so much confidence and faith in me that he kept me very close. So I had to do my best. And I became head of recruitment and training. That way, I had a chance to give a job to a lot of acquaintances, which I think many of them are still appreciative up till today.
You also had another political job, so to say, or something associated with politics as the clerk of the National Assembly.
Yes.
You are PAMSEC or DG, but the clerk of the National Assembly.
Yes.
Dealing with politicians. How did that go?
That was very rewarding because the Shagari Assembly, following the coup in 83-84, was disbanded. The entire staff was disbanded and humiliated. So I became the first one now appointed by government to be clerk of the assembly. And the rest of the staff, I have to employ all of them.
To rebuild the team.
From messenger to deputy clerk. So I embarked on that. I could only attract 2 people from the defunct Shagari National Assembly. Because I think the treatment they received, I understand, was so bad that not only 2 are willing or able to accept to come back to serve in the assembly. So all other vacancies I have to fill.
You stayed there 4 or 5 years?
I stayed there about 4 years something. I stayed there until this ill-fated Third Republic Assembly was convened in December 1992.
When you were made the chairman of the National Assembly Service Commission,
Yes.
was that after retirement or was it a continuation of your civil service career?
It was after retirement, in fact, long after retirement.
Yes.
Because I was retired 30th April 1999. Just 1 month before the General Abdul Salam Abubakar transition ended.
Yes.
So from that time up until 2013, I was a retired person. But in the interim, in that period, from March 2004 until end of 2019, I was teaching at NIPS, where I rose from study group director to be acting director of studies for 6 years. That made me gave me another opportunity to interact with top civil servants or top people from both the public and private sectors who come to do their courses in order to be made members of the National Institute. Yeah.
What have you been doing since you retired fully? Now, I think since the National Assembly Service Commission,
Yes.
you have not been working in
No,
Yes.
I have not been working.
yes.
But
This
we
is
have
from
been-
2018?
No, we are doing consultancy.
Okay.
Myself, Professor A.D. Yahaya, and several colleagues who had a company and who used to be invited to do a lot of training and retraining for the top civil servants, which
Are you still doing that?
no, I think the thing has dried up. So we have in fact, dissolved the company. Since we spent about 4 or 5 years, no job.
Yes.
We are paying rent over the office, paying secretary, paying messenger, etc. So we have dissolved the company.
So what do you do in retirement now?
Now?
Yes.
I just read because I go to London almost at least once a year. And among the things I do is I make sure that I go to a bookshop, a very first-class bookshop, and buy at least 2 or 3 books every time I go. So that keeps me abreast of politics, current affairs, as well as history. And I've been enjoying it that way.
Besides reading, do you have any other hobby, any other activity you do?
No. Besides reading, I don't do anything, really.
How is your typical day from morning to evening?
Typical day, I normally wake up around 4:30, say my prayers, and then continue supplicating to God Almighty until 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. And thereafter I close the prayer aspects. And very often I then go back to bed for about 2 or 3 hours before the 1 o'clock prayer. That's the pattern every day. Yeah.
For the rest of the day, do you socialize, or you just stay at home most of the time?
I stay at home most of the time.
Do you do any restrictions on your diet? Is there any particular thing you eat or you don't eat?
No, except pork. I eat anything.
Yes.
Because I'm lucky. My weight.
How is family life for you?
Family life is okay. Because I'm lucky. I've been blessed with 14 children. Now, 12 of whom are already graduates and working, mostly here in Abuja. That gives me a great joy that I have done my part.
So after Uganda, you married again?
After Uganda, I married again. They became 2. At one stage, they became 3. But ultimately, they remained 2. The one, I divorced one. And the senior wife died in 2009. But then I have since then married another one. So there are still 2 of them. Though they don't live in the same house, which now forced me to have 2 homes. Yeah.
Do you still socialize with friends, your peers, your mates? Do you visit and
I socialize largely through the telephones, or when I go to Friday mosque. I meet with friends like Professor Bajoga, and I also talk with friends like Tony Iradia, who was a friend since I was in our electoral commission. We've been tight friends, and he lives in Abuja. So occasionally he visits me to say hi to a dear friend. Before I had problem in my leg, we used to travel to Benin with him and often visit Chief Igbenedion, who is an uncle of Iradia. So we used to go there, and very often there you get a lot of generosity from Chief Igbenedion and his son, Lucky Igbenedion, who was one time governor of Bendel or Edo State.
So do you travel besides? I mean, do you go to? Do you have your all links to Uganda? Do you travel outside the country now? Oh,
No, when I was on the commission, yes,
mm,
I used to travel outside the country at least 3 or 4 times, and I've been to Uganda
mm,
several times
mm,
since then. But most of my travels are just to London
mm,
for medical checkup and treatment,
mm.
and back to Nigeria. Yeah.
What do you make of the country now? I mean, you've seen quite a bit of Nigeria over the years. What is your feeling about the current state of the nation?
The current state, I think, instead of the despondency under the previous regime, I think people are now very optimistic and very expectant of a better life under this present regime. And these people include my humble self. Despite the problems of we're having with the diesel price, petrol price, NEPA price, we believe things ought to be better for us in the next 4 years or 8 years. In particular, we believe the security situation will improve. Because I have not traveled to Poriskum now for about 10 years because of fear of the dangers by the roadside.
Finally, when I told friends that I'm going to go and interview Adamu Fika, everybody, the first person that comes to mind is the older Adamu Fika.
Yes.
I wonder, having this name, a name of somebody who is actually a relative and a mentor, has it been a kind of disadvantage or advantage to you in your career?
It has been, I think, an advantage. Because wherever you go, you have recognition. Until you explain that the older Fika is my teacher, is my relation, and he is my boss. But I am not him, except that he is Alhaji and I am called Dr. Adamu Fika.
Doctor, yes.
So that at least differentiates between us somewhat.
But you never felt that the name has been a problem for you to recognize you, or to make you distinct from him?
No, it has never been a problem. Because the Google has something on people. And there's something on me which gives my background,
Yes.
as we have discussed with you,
Yes.
who shows that, yes, I am a smaller Fika, but I've also done my own
Yes.
contributions
Yes.
to the well-being
Yes.
of some students and of some Nigerians, especially in Borno and Yobe, where some of our projects are still being used. And I'm very proud to visit Yobe and Borno State at any time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed, I should say that your contribution is beyond Yobe and Borno. I mean, it's clear from what our viewers have heard that you have traversed the country. You've served in many areas, including the National Electoral Commission, including the National Assembly, and of course, including the Federal Civil Service.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you for your service to the country and for agreeing to give us this interview.
Thank you so
And
much.
viewers, until we meet in another edition of Reminiscences, thank you and goodbye.